Hi, Chameli.
Hey Sudheer, so we are live now. I'll give a very short introduction about yourself and then you can take over the stage.
Definitely.
So, to the audience, Sudheer is an amazing tech guy. He started out as an engineer, just like the mayor, just like most of us. Right. Today he's CTO at Shortest Professionals. It's a HR tech tool, and also a member of the Forbes Technology Council. And his latest stint is CTO at Insightly Analytics, which aims at providing a lot of information about engineering productivity. So, I hope I got that part right. And
Yes.
that's actually the title for today's session as well. Engineering productivity is what Sudhir would be talking about based on his years of experience as an engineer and being an engineering manager over these years. Sudhir, I'm going to leave the stage to you. Please take it forward.
Thank you so much, Chameli. Appreciate it. Happy to be here. Let me start by sharing my screen.
Sure.
Let me know when you can see my screen.
We are able to see your screen.
Fantastic. All right. Uh, just like Chameli introduced, I'm the founder and the CEO of Insightly Analytics, and I'm also the Forbes Top 100 Great Managers of India, both in 2019 and 2020. Today, I'm here to talk about a future of developer productivity. What it means is throughout my engineering career, as a leadership and also as a software developer, I always wondered, I'm like, what does it mean by developer productivity? How do I know I'm giving out my best? Or when I had to manage engineers, how do I know my engineers are giving their best? And how do I empower them to be productive? So that's the whole idea behind Insightly Analytics in general and the scope of this particular session today. Firstly, let's start with what is productivity? We are talking about getting important things done consistently. That's fair and simple. But when it comes to developer productivity, what are we talking about? This is all about releasing better software faster. And the most important thing is without team burnout. We want to go fast. Every company, every team wants to go fast. They want to release better software. But end of the day, the team burnout is something inevitable because of the kind of productivity loss that's happening within the engineering organization. So that is what I'm like, how can we achieve all of these things and not have a toll on engineering uh, bandwidth or the engineers by themselves? Let's see. Productivity by itself is a huge problem. This is an often overlooked problem in all areas in general, I can say. And with engineering, it's even more expensive. This is a $550 billion is the cost of disengaged workers per year in the US alone. Imagine, this is from the Gallup report. And then when you can just make a productivity of 10% improvement, which means if you can save a 10% rework for a small to medium sized companies, we are talking about $5 million per year saved for a company, because all of the productivity improvements straight away add to the company's bottom line, which is why the savings are too high. And this is from a research from Google. There's a DevOps arm called Dora, which is a DevOps assessment and research company. And they have released this article. I can share more about it later. So what happens when developers are productive? This is one of the things, right? I'm like, okay, great. Like we just said, we want to make sure we are releasing it faster and we are improving the quality and avoiding burnout. This is fair and simple. But what happens when they're not productive? We miss the deadlines because people get stuck in various areas of the product or various stages of the whole software development life cycle, and it's very easy to get missed deadlines. What I mean about it is the requirements come to the developers, and then the developer starts coding, and then halfway through the development process, the developer asks, "Hey, I need to know this particular scenario. I haven't thought about it. It's not in the requirements." They get stuck, or the developer finishes their work and submits it for review, and the reviewer is not available. They're on a vacation or something else, and then the deadline is completely missed. Lot of these things, multiple of these micro things cause missed deadlines. Or when there is a lot of ownership and you don't want to miss a deadline, there is definitely a lot of frustration that comes. And how many of you have seen there is a lot of a spike in workload during the end of the release? When the spike in workload happens once in a while, it's absolutely fine. But like if it continuously happens, then there's definitely employer attrition happening. Because what I mean about it is nobody wants to be burning out. Burning out is something that's not a sustainable mode. But if you are with the fear of missing the deadline, people can't start to work too much during the release times, and then like it causes a completely unhealthy culture in the team, causing employee attrition. When these happens, I mean, like either we miss the deadline or the employee attrition happens, it's a straight loss to the business because you're missing on your expectations from the client for the client. Replacing an employee is a very expensive thing because there is a lot of knowledge that goes with the employee, and also there's a lot of time that it takes for you to refill a position and so on. So this is why we want to focus on making sure productivity is very important. And when we want to achieve productivity, this is not a single dimensional thing. When we go to marketing team, it's we can say, hey, get me 1,000 leads, 10,000 leads straight away. Go to sales team, we can say that get me like no $10,000 worth of sales or $1 million worth of sales. It's very single dimensional. But when it comes to engineering productivity, there is no single uh, metric that can say, hey, we achieved productivity. This is the metric that we can see. And when I refer to this productivity, this is a completely a people efficiency thing, not a systems efficiency. Systems efficiency is something around are the systems up and running? I'm like, no, how much is our AWS cost or cloud cost? What is the uptime of our servers? 99.39s, 49s, whatever it is, right? Those are all more of a systems efficiency. But when it comes to people efficiency, how do we identify that? First of all, if we want to identify, we need to measure what matters. Olden days, people used to measure lines of code and say that person who writes the highest number of lines of code is the most productive person. But engineering teams very soon realize that's not the way to measure productivity because smartest engineer writes sometimes the least amount of code, which is very highly complex or complicated work, right? So we want to identify what actually matters and measure those things. This will also bring in the desired behaviors because you measure a wrong thing like the lines of code, then people could be starting to add bunch of comments in the code, which is just like you're increasing the tech debt and nothing else. Second thing, we have a lot of times the developers are working on a lot of features, but the revenue goals are very different, and there is a disconnect between what the developer is trying to build versus the company is trying to sell. And this disconnect really is costing a lot to the companies. What I mean about it is, imagine an example: you have an iPhone app and an Android app. If it is costing $20,000 to build an iPhone app, but you are making $1 million with the revenue, and the other way around, if it is costing you $80,000 for an Android app, but it is hardly making you any revenue, this disconnect is very high when it comes to software development teams because there is no granular measurement of unit economics when it comes to software development. Any company, when you see these unit economics, we only say like, no, these are the unit economics based on operational unit economics because we do not have that visibility or connection into software development. So for example, we cannot say like how many people, how many hours did they spend on developing an iPhone app versus an Android app. We have the data about the revenue to say how much we made, but we do not have a granularity or a breakdown of how much we spent on developing a particular software feature. The moment we connect these two things, every effort that is going into developing something is actually straight away directly correlated to what the company is trying to achieve as a business goal. When this happens, there is a productivity. Productivity, again, is not just about launching a lot of features, but what matters the most, what are the most important features to that maps to the revenue goals is very important. Next, very straight away, this is remove the wait times. Like I said, if you have multiple stages in the whole application, the software development lifecycle, you want to remove the wait times between each of these stages so that it becomes a lot easier to move faster. And for us to even remove the wait times, we need to also identify where the wait times are happening. And the last one is automating the tasks. There are a lot of tedious tasks in engineering operations, if you have to call it. When we write a code on one version control or like GitHub or anything, there is no straightaway way for us to go update our Jira. So you have to come write your code, then go back to Jira and update your Jira dashboard. The simple automations are completely lacking when it comes to engineering teams. When it comes to marketing and sales, you have a lot of marketing automation and like tons of tools out there which will automate every click, will save every time for you for the tedious stuff. But when it comes to engineering, we do not have those things, and we need to really automate those tasks to achieve the productivity. Because imagine a product manager whose only window into engineering efforts is completely the Jira dashboard. And engineer by themselves, they're working on a different platform like GitHub, writing code in IDE, and then not going and updating the Jira. Whatever the dashboard that the product leader or the engineering leader is looking into is a stale dashboard. It's obsolete. Like they don't see that the work is happening, but actually work is happening, or vice versa. So that kind of creates a lot of confusion around like what is happening, expectation settings with the stakeholders, and then eventually the missed deadlines and the employee frustration is going to happen. So what is the benefit of organizations from developer productivity? It's pretty similar to the opposite of like what happens when the developers are not productive, because every engineer that adds more improves the productivity, it goes directly to the bottom line. Bottom line is a very, very key metric for companies because top line is very different versus bottom line, because productivity improves adds to the bottom line. And when you have a productive team, engineers are more engaged. They love what they're doing. They don't like to be in a waiting mode, uncertain mode. Oh my God, when is my feature going to be going to production? When is my feature going to be code reviewed? When am I going to get the requirements from the product team? When can I move it? Right? Waiting time creates a lot of anxiety and disengages the employee from the whole process. Then when we do this whole process of increasing the engagement and like kind of providing the visibility, and you're connecting your development efforts to revenue goals, we are turning software teams from cost centers to value drivers. Like how many times when we talk about software teams, we straight away call them as cost centers. Why do we have to call them as cost centers, unlike a marketing or a sales team? Because marketing team, they have a quota carrying goals. Sales team, they have a quota carrying goals. But is a software team the only cost center? But software team, if done right, is the only one that can help the company scale at a very better stage. And then we have to turn these cost centers into value drivers. Only when we do that is by correlating the data and making sure the developer productivity is at the highest. And this is a funny hacker news, which talks about one person who is managing 10 fully remote engineering jobs. The bar is so low, oversight is non-existent, and everyone is so forgiving for underperformance. I can coast about 4 to 8 weeks before a given job fires me, which means today there is no visibility into what the engineer is doing. If the engineer is in a waiting mode for so long, the developer is able to manage 10 jobs remotely. And this guy is making a $1.5 million run rate for comp this year. And the interview process is definitely so much faster. We invest so much of effort into attracting top talent. We give away 2x salary for a 10x engineer. We do all of these things, and then if we cannot keep them productive, they either have to be looking for another job, leaving them, or it's a loss to the business. And this is a hacker news that went viral within very few days of posting it, 20,000 likes and all. And when I talk to these things, I'm like, no, there's a HBR article that talks about the same thing completely. The team's languishing, and there's a productivity problem, which is impacting the mental health of engineers. So how Insightly does today is Insightly kind of tries to gets the data from all the areas where software developers are spending time. You get the data from Bitbucket, Jira, meeting times, collaboration tools like Slack. If you're spending on Google Docs or spreadsheets, we get the data from all the different sources and kind of turn them into simple interactive dashboards and generate insights. The reason we do this is today the complete data that is accessible to leaders is very siloed. We have the data on Jira, we have the data or dashboards on Jira, GitHub, everything. But as leaders, for us to connect the dots, we need to get the data from multiple sources and connect the dots to understand what's happening. What am I thinking I'm actually delivering based on my Jira versus what my actual developers are doing? And once we do this, as I said, we want to connect it to the revenue and business goals to understand if what we are developing is actually translating into a revenue or a business objective in a straight way. And when we have these dashboards, we have a lot of dashboards today. We have access to data. There's enough data intelligence that's happening. But when you have access to dashboards, we are unable to spend time to go understand what is exactly happening unless we spend so much time digging through multiple filters, slicing and dicing the data in different angles. Instead, if we can deliver insights to the top leadership or to the right audience at the right time, by understanding, hey, this is where we need your attention. Either, we need you to intervene here and remove the wait time, or we need to say like, no, hey, this team is really doing amazing, go celebrate. If we are able to release more features, then go congratulate, recognize the team. The engineering team, I was talking to one of our HR from a unicorn in India the other day, and he said, I'm able to reward every other team member in the organization based on milestones, but not engineering team. Why? Because I don't know how long it takes for them to release. I don't know how long, what are their milestones. I don't know what milestone I have to even understand and reward them. It is a very tough situation, and engineers are burning out, and there is no way for the HR teams who are struggling to find out how do I reward, recognize my engineers. When we do releases faster, there's a lot of effort that goes into the CI, CD, and all of those things. When we do the releases faster, or try to improve the process, but is anybody recognizing it? If yes, I'm like, how do we kind of surface this data and share it and celebrate them? That is why insights come into the picture, and we want to add those to the right audience at the right time. And then how does this work? We set up Insightly with interactive dashboards to baseline metrics. And then we also will be able to compare this against industry benchmarks to say, like, how is a e-commerce company in India doing exactly for these metrics? And how are we doing? And like, how much room do we have? Once we understand the industry benchmarks, understand where we stand as a company, we will be able to understand okay, set up these real-time insights. We identify the roadblocks, and then improve the efficiency, experiences, all of those things, and then kind of reach our North Star metrics. So this is how we want to kind of improve the efficiency of the developer productivity. This is a very simple example of one use case which I want to show here. Here, pull request, I don't know, I know we have a mixed set of audience here, but pull request is just like a small piece of code that we bundled to release it as a feature. So the simple stages, the time between these stages today, if it is 12 hours and 18 hours between these stages, the time to market is 30 hours. Whereas if you can reduce the time by half in each stage, you're releasing 50% faster. I know it's not easy to reduce this, but today a lot of companies and teams do not have visibility into even this metric today. The data lies there, but the visibility into this data on a real-time basis and a granular level is missing today. Here is some product screenshots which talks about high maintenance projects. When an engineer is trying to understand how to deliver a feature, every time there is a lot of maintenance work that happens in the process. And the maintenance work is something that is often overlooked, or it's like an untold story of the efforts that are being taken by an engineer. And we want to show it to the top management and other stakeholders in the company to show how the maintenance is kind of slowing down a particular feature launch. Or if maintenance is, it's time for us to refactor a complete project, remove a project. Like other speakers were sharing today, the tech debt and product debt is very, very important in an organization. And we want to identify it and take action on it. That is what we want to do here. Here are some screenshots about the product. But I would like to just pause for a moment and then see if there are any questions per se before I just jump into the more product screenshots. So Jamili, maybe if you can pause me at any time, I'm I can take some questions, and then because developer productivity is something that's what we're doing is a very new category of the products, if I have to call it, and there is a lot of awareness that is still being created. Every company, most companies I talk to around 80 to 100 engineering leaders across Silicon Valley and India. And this is a problem people have been facing. And there are some alternate solutions on how people are doing these things. But this is a new category of companies that are being born out there, which are trying to solve this problem of visibility for engineering teams and coming for people efficiency. This is another simple screenshot. This is actually real-time data. I amassed the information which talks about how a team has been completely stuck in one of the week, and then they're burning out the next week. This is not a healthy way for a team to sustain on an ongoing basis. You see, 1 week because they've been completely waiting on the requirements, and then the next week they have a deadline and they're completely juggling to kind of get the stuff done. Sorry, 1 second. This is a one that we want to kind of show and surface this data, which say people are burning out, but are people, is the top management and everybody able to see this? I'm like, unless we are in the physical offices, I'm like, where people are sitting until like 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. In the remote culture, remote world, virtual world, we are not even able to say what we mean by people are burning out. This is exactly what will solve those things. And then we go to stand-up calls, and like we all have this Zoom fatigue, what we are calling it, and then just ask a lot of information about, hey, what are you working on? When do you think you can deliver this? What did you do yesterday? What do you plan to do today? Any roadblocks? These are the same questions we keep asking, like a round table of 10 engineers on a stand-up call. And then instead, the simple data could be surfaced on a dashboard. And if we could avoid one single meeting, for 30 minutes with 10 people, we are talking about 300 minutes of meeting time saved for a team, not even a company. Imagine the value we can bring. And myself being an engineer at one time and talking to my engineers, one of the things that they love the most is avoiding or reducing meeting time. Engineers love coding, like they love spending time on code, like building amazing stuff, and less time like giving data updates and like to say status updates. Rather, we could push out all those things into dashboards, automate the stuff, and make their life better. And the other one I was talking about is reducing the time to market. Like in my earlier example, if we can start to show where is the time happening in various stages of the product life cycle, we can easily solve it. As leaders, we need to see the problem, and then like once you identify the problem, repairing it or fixing it, resolving it is a lot more easier. Identifying the problem is one of the biggest thing, and that's visibility will help us. And there's a research that shows elite teams are able to deliver 20 times more per day than average teams. How do we do that? We need to get the visibility to say how many times are we how many times are we releasing on a given day basis or a weekly basis. And then how do we make sure just delivering but like not breaking things is also important. This is for the session right now. I'll any questions I'll be happy to take.
Hey, Sudhir, that actually was a great session. So I'm from a GTM background, and I didn't know that much actually went into engineering and managing the productivity. So we actually love the session. So to the audience, we are opening up Q&A right now, and we have a couple of more minutes for the session to end. So if you have any questions, you can put it on chat or the Q&A section, or if you would like to directly, come on the stage, feel free to click on the button and on your top right which says ask to share audio and video, and you'll be right here. So Sudhir, something that I really liked over here is the feature where you show where exactly in the product development cycle most of the time is consumed, right?
Right.
Because when we try to come up with different solutions and different products, I've had multiple discussions with a lot of founders and product managers, and this is something uh, we are encountering for the very first time. So amazing! Kudos to you for thinking about that.
Yeah, this is a very important thing. I've been facing throughout my career, I can say, as an engineering leader, to say, okay, how do I know my team is the best? How do I know the engineer? I'm like, no, the first question that they ask to me in a one-on-one is, hey, tell me, how should I improve? What should I be improving? I'm like, no, I'm always getting stuck. I'm like, there's a lot of subjectivity in the whole information that's happening through the chain of hierarchy in the engineering organization. And we want to turn that into a data-driven discussion by enabling a data common language, universal language for everybody to talk about.
Got it.
Uh, yeah,
So,
Kushal Raj, you
Sudhir,
have a question.
yes.
Hey, good evening, Sudhir.
Good
Hi.
evening.
So my question was, is Insightly geared towards the engineering managers or product managers?
It's both, actually. The reason is both of them are kind of equally responsible for the delivery of the product and keeping the team happy on an ongoing basis. So the current, some of the mocks, some of the actual, not the mocks, the real screenshots, what I showed you there are aimed at engineering leaders. But we're also trying to get integration with Jira so that we correlate the data from Jira and actual work that's being done by the developers. That way, the product leaders are also more empowered to see what's happening in a real time.
Okay, so how will a tool like this help me? So I follow something called the Shape Up model, popularized by Basecamp. So in which we plan, let's say, for a 2 months workload for the whole engineering team, out of which everyone has a clarity of who will be doing what, and feedback is always continuous. So the engineering team members will always be pushing code and be available in staging if one of the product person wants to see it. And we don't really use Jira at all. So how will a tool like yours help, or what would you suggest for a
Yeah.
company like us?
Great question, right? So one, I'm like, it's using Jira or not is a secondary, but using a project management tool, anything, it could be Basecamp, Asana, Trello, Jira, anything is fine. So the question is, how do you know when you look at a particular feature that is written in Basecamp or Jira, how do you know the work is actually being done against that particular feature or a ticket?
So we see it in the staging area and we know it.
Correct. But until the work comes to the staging area, there are so many different stages, right? The developer has to write the code, and like he does 50% of the code gets stuck for a requirement. And then he cannot even move it to the code review stage. When he doesn't do that, I'm like, no, there is no visibility into product leader to say, hey, this 4 engineers are stuck on 4 features or 5 features. That visibility is completely missing today. So once we create that visibility into, say, like wherever engineers are getting stuck, and then the product manager would jump in to resolve those roadblocks and then move them faster. So which means your features or pull requests would come faster into the staging area.
Okay, but the whole product development is not just about engineers, right? So you have the UI UX team also. So how will the tool like yours help over there? Because some of the
This
questions too will be geared, the engineering question will be geared towards the UI UX person,
Right.
and not having the product person involved in the scenarios, in the whole
Correct.
picture.
That is why I named the session as developer productivity. So
Right.
this
So
is
that
mainly,
it will not help in that matrix where the developer
it
would
is
like to.
one of the way I would say is, I'm like, no, if an engineer is stuck for a UI UX design, I'm like this, hey, I'm missing this particular error state or this particular state in the UI UX. And then, it's easy for the designer to jump in and say, yes, I missed this particular state. Let me give it to you. Right. So it's a, um, easy thing for product managers and designers who are the ones creating the actual requirements for engineering to come in and jump and help them at the right time, so that together as an organization and a product design tech, everybody's moving faster.
Okay. And wouldn't it's just a quirky thing that I just noticed? Wouldn't a company that has open communications and which fosters high level of communication, like it just always communicate, eliminate a need for a product like Insightly at all?
Absolutely right. So the question is, I'm like, no, do you want to sit on a call with 10 people in a team and ask each and everyone around the table to say, hey, what have you done, what you plan to do today? Or would you like to see all of the data on a single dashboard and rather jump into more strategic conversations with the team to say, hey, how do we brainstorm this bigger problem?
Okay.
Right.
That's
So
one way to look at it, and the other way
okay,
is, what if everyone broadcasts what they've done asynchronously?
correct. That is what this is, right? The broadcasting the information asynchronously without human intervention to show that, like, what somebody is doing. It's even better when you want to broadcast. If there is a human intervention, there is a human layer coming into picture. When there is no need for a human layer to come and give status updates. So absolutely, like any data dashboard you take in, for the example, right, Kushal, everything can be communicated without a dashboard. Why we bring dashboards is to avoid. There is a Harvard research that shows 40 to 50% of the time by mid-level management is gone in information polling. What I
Okay.
mean by that is like to say, hey, what have you done? What have you done? What have you done? When do you plan to deliver this? When do you plan to deliver this? And then collate the information and pass it upwards.
Yeah,
So that
sounds
information,
something that I have done in the past.
right? Don't you think? I'm like, no, is that fun? Or like, no, if you have a dashboard that would solve all of that thing and save you like 30% of the time, rather you would invest that time for a mid-level management or a product person to solve a bigger product problem, spend time with the customer, or like, no, mentor a junior member of the team.
Definitely makes sense.
That is the whole point.
Nice chatting with you. I'll mute
Same
it
here.
from here.
Good questions.
All right. Thank you so much for the questions, Kushal Raj. I think we're at the end of the session right now. So yeah, thank you so much once again, Sudhir, for coming on board as a speaker. We really enjoyed your session. So to the audience, this session is recorded and this will be uploaded on YouTube in the next few days. So